Hello guys, we are going to talk about the atomic bombing in Japan and ethical and moral concerns in relation to it. To start giving a general context, Japan attacked the American naval station in Hawaii's Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, causing the country to enter World War II. Following the assault, the US and its allies engaged in a protracted and bloody conflict with Japan. As a result, in August 1945, atomic bombs were dropped on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Some believe that the bombings would hasten the conclusion of the war and save American lives since they represented a significant revolution in the nature of warfare. The morality of employing atomic weapons, particularly against civilian populations, has been questioned by others. The bombs also sparked debate on whether the attacks were a form of retaliation or a required military tactic, as well as the connection between the Pearl Harbor attack and the employment of atomic weapons. It is impossible to emphasize how much the atomic bombings affected the course of history, despite ongoing dispute about their effect. Knowing this, we can say the Second World War made it impossible to maintain an equilibrium between civil responsibility and the preservation of moral and ethical principles, leading to catastrophes like the atomic bombing to Japan.
So, the first argument. The atomic bombing of Japan has raised moral and ethical questions since it happens. It has also questioned the development of warfare and weapons to be created. Now, if we talk about atomic bombing, it was conscious, thoughtful, studied decision, and which effects were known. This decision was taken by the Allies, with the hope and the argument that this was necessary to end war. For this, it's important to understand the word civil responsibility as the patriotic and ethical duties of all citizens to take an active role in society and to consider the interests and concerns of other individuals in the community. Considering the attack to Pearl Harbor, the United States President had the civil responsibility to protect its community at all costs. Here he presents the opportunity to use an atomic bomb. As such powerful weapon, it wouldn't only defend the United States, it would most likely end war. In this dilemma, he has two major choices: prioritize the civil responsibility over his moral and ethical uses or considerations, and drop the bomb on Japan, killing thousands of people, but protecting the people of the United States and ending a war that could have killed much more people. Or in the other hand, the president could not drop the bomb and continue with the war, prioritizing the moral and ethical considerations over the safety of all the Americans. As you can see, there is no possible way of finding balance. You can drop a bomb less harmful because then it wouldn't be much other than causing Japan to attack again and continuing the war. So either you choose to protect the society and the people, which is your civil responsibility, or you prioritize the common good over your people. From the point of view of the president, I guess this sounds as an easy decision, since he as a president has the duty to protect its society, even in such a context as a world war. Second argument. Another reason to why it has so difficult to find balance between civil responsibility and moral and ethical consideration was the lack of peacekeeping organizations, such as the United Nations nowadays. In the moment, there was no organization who had any type of power who wanted to prioritize the peace, safety and wealth of the people over the interest in war. This creates the possibility for decisions like this, like releasing the atomic bomb, to be taken. We can see the effect that peacekeeping organization has nowadays in conflicts like Russia and Ukraine. Putin has wanted to take Ukraine by using weapons comparable to atomic bombs. However, the United Nations has created limitations, restrictions, and regulations so that Putin isn't able to do such things like this. This proved that if there were to be an organization such as the United Nations at that time, then maybe the balance between the civil responsibility and moral and ethical considerations could have been found. Obviously, the constants then and now were different, but the creation of this organization have proven successfully at peacekeeping since then to now, so the events could have been different. This lack of regulations and organizations is known as ethical considerations. In the time, there were none, meaning that the decisions taken by all powers involved in war had known of this. Ethical regulations refer to the principles and ideas found by organizations that are considered capable in order to say whether something is good or bad. So the ILS had only to account the moral considerations at the moment at the best looking decision taking into account the moral values of them was the one taken.
So, counter-argument. Some might say that the correct decision would have been not just dropping the bomb, preventing lives being destroyed, as seen in the testimony of Reverend Tanimoto, a minister who saw many lives go away in front of him. People with families and dreams who weren't guilty of anything showed in Hiroshima by John Hersey. Tanimoto was raised by a family that were followers of Nichiren school of Buddhism. He was born in Hiroshima in 1909 and raised there. Yet, after going to a Christian school in his late teens, he decided to become a Christian. He continued to college in the US and finally ordained as a Methodist minister. The book tells his whereabouts in the time of the bombing, and it explains what was he doing there. Tanimoto was on foot when the bomb went off in the city. He was thrown to the ground and momentarily became unconscious. When he came to the city, it was in disarray, and many people were either dead or severely hurt. He understood right away he had to assist as many people as he could. He started using his bare hands frequently to dig through the debris and rubble in search of survivors. Injured persons were also transported to him on his bicycle at a neighboring hospital, which was immediately overrun by patients. Reverend Tanimoto stuck to his goal of assisting people despite the destruction all around him. He kept looking for survivors and doing what he could to help. He gradually established himself as a dependable authority figure in the neighborhood and assisted in setting up relief operations following the attack. Despite this, it is known that the atomic bombs were one of the main causes for the war to end. So not dropping them would have just continued the war, which would continue with more dead people and worse consequences. Also, the President of the United States had the duty to protect its community. So we ask, what type of protection the President would be giving to each country if, after such devastating and threatening attack, such as the one on Pearl Harbor, just reacted and doing nothing in return, or sending meaningless bombs to Japan? The answer is simple: none, or at least not enough. So after such an important attack, such as the Pearl Harbor, the President had the duty to protect its citizens and create respect for his country.
In conclusion, we can say that due to the Second World War, it became impossible to strike a balance between civil duty and the preservation of moral and ethical standards, which resulted in tragedies like the atomic bombing of Japan. This, since the President of the United States had to take a decision between the civil responsibility he had and the moral values, if any, he preserved to the moment, since it was impossible to find an in-between measure. Also, since there were no peacekeeping organizations, which means that there was no one to prevent or try and regulate decisions made by the allies in the time, as there is nowadays with the UN in the Russia and Ukraine example. Finally, some might say that the balance was to just not drop the bomb, preventing lives being lost, seen in John Hersey's Hiroshima and the story of Reverend Tanimoto. However, doing this, the President would renounce to its civil responsibility, which would be incorrect, also continuing with a war that would have taken much more lives.